min-maxers ruin everything. And to exemplify this, I was looking at a forum post and somebody was talking about how you have to get high refresh rate computer monitors. That has to be part of your upgrade plan when you improve your system that you're using. And that's fine. I get it that higher refresh rates are better. But put it into perspective. A base refresh rate for a computer monitor is going to be somewhere around, what, 60 hertz. 60 frames per second, a monitor's capable of refreshing. Now, more modern monitors are going to probably be 120, and some will go up to 240, maybe some even higher. But the reality is the cinematic standard for refresh rate is 24 frames per second. That's what you'd probably see if you went to a movie theater. You're getting about 24 frames per second, which means that a traditional projector in a movie theater is going to display the same frame more than once because there's actually not enough frames per second for the projector, which does have a higher refresh rate than that, to display a new frame every single time it refreshes. So we can watch a good movie, an action movie, have a great cinematic experience in a movie theater at 24 frames per second. But then there's going to be people on the internet somewhere telling you that you can't properly enjoy Microsoft Flight Simulator if you're not running a monitor that's at least 120 hertz. And the other thing that's interesting about this is that the average response time, the amount of time it takes for you to see something and then react to it with something like a mouse click, is probably about a quarter of a second. So, give or take, it takes you about a quarter of a second to actually create a response from stimuli. And there's people saying, well, you're stupid if you don't have a higher refresh rate on your monitor. You can't play competitive games. You are going to be at a tactical disadvantage because your reaction time is going to be so low. Okay, so are you saying that you have the ability to react at 60 frames per second, more than 60 frames per second? I mean, like how fast do people think their reflexes actually are? Nobody's reflexes are that lightning fast. Some are faster than others, but the reality is human reflex time is pretty slow. Like, that's why people think that they can text on their phone, look at their phone, and still drive their car down the road, because they don't understand just how much your actual reaction time to things is limited by the fact that we aren't really that fast, at least not in terms of hand-eye coordination and that kind of thing. So it's just an interesting thing to put into perspective how something like refresh rate on a monitor can turn into some sort of a kind of a toxic conversation with people trying to flex on each other. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a nice computer monitor. It doesn't mean that there's not certain technical reasons why a higher refresh rate monitor isn't better. Like, there are. The biggest reason why you'd want a better refresh rate is simply that you do not want screen tearing, because if your computer is exporting more frames per second than your monitor is capable of displaying, then potentially you won't have a consistent display of frames, and you'll have screen tearing when the screen displays part of one frame and part of the next frame all at the same time, or if it maybe doesn't display them in a consistent way. Then those are all legitimate reasons why you would need to maybe invest in a higher refresh rate. But to put this in perspective, when I was a kid, I was sitting there playing Microsoft Flight Simulator 2000, I want to say, and I think I was playing it at 7 frames per second or something, just hoping to have enough frames per second to be able to actually play the game. And I didn't even care about how bad the performance was. I just was glad the game would actually load, and I was excited if I could play it at all. But to be able to be getting 60 frames per second in the modern version of Flight Simulator, and then be arguing about whether a 60 hertz monitor is good enough to play the game is that's pretty wild when you put it into perspective like that. But it's part of a broader problem. I think there's a lot of people who have this min-maxing attitude toward everything in life. Like, nothing can just be good by default, and then you fix it if it's broken. They'll say, oh, well, like, if you don't, if you don't have a 4090 in your PC, you can't play games. Well, like I've seen that in PC building groups. Okay, well, you don't have to have the absolute best computer monitor or the absolute best graphics card in order to have a good experience in a game. I mean, it's just not true. But people who get into it as hobbyists and enthusiasts, they start to become so obsessed with things that they can't see the forest through the trees. And I think it's really important to really just kind of start off by saying, what is the outcome that I really want, and then focus on that. If you can play the game that you want to play with a computer that's 5 years old, and it's going to do a perfect job of running that game, does it really matter that there's something better that you could possibly have? It really doesn't matter, because you are having the experience that you want to have with what you have. Now, if you start to think, oh my goodness, I would like to do this other thing, and in order to do that, then I need to upgrade my system. I need to do something different because I want to specifically solve this particular problem that I'm having. Then by all means, reach out and try to improve your station in life, by all means. So if somebody really truly wants something because it's going to make their life better, then that's great. But there's a lot of situations in life where that's not what we're doing. We're just trying to check the box to say that we have gotten the ultimate top tier gear, and that is, that's paramount over enjoying the experience. Like, I saw somebody say something about how they like to build computers and they don't like to play games anymore. So they build computers so that they can play games, and then they realize that mostly what they actually enjoy is building the computers themselves, which is totally fine. That's their hobby. But there's also something to be said for the fact that, like, what is the point of having a hobby of trying to have the best of something if you don't actually enjoy the things which that tool will enable you to do? It's like getting a car specifically because it's able to drive 180 miles an hour, and then you never drive it more than 65 miles an hour. Then what is the point of the vehicle being able to go faster if you're not going to drive it quickly? Is it just so that you can flex and say, well, look, I have this amazing vehicle, right? There's a lot of people who are always looking for something that they can chase. And I think it's very important to focus on the function, not having the best gear. It's like that in games. So if my goal is just to hang out and have fun, and I'm not trying to get to a particular destination, then maybe I enjoy an experience profusely, and it doesn't feel like it's a grind. It doesn't feel like it's miserable in any way. It seems like a very nice, peaceful experience. And then somebody else could have a raging, frustrating time because they're trying to, you know, chase the end game, and they're not having fun because in their mind, everything is garbage. It's all trash unless they can get whatever that almost borderline unattainable thing is that they're reaching for. And then those same people, they will look down on others, and they'll start to have this attitude that, you know what? I mean, I have the best gear, so why don't you? I have put 10,000 hours into this game, so if you haven't, then you aren't serious. And you know, like I remember in I think it was Elder Scrolls Online, because we were talking about not liking some of the changes that had happened in that game, and somebody replied to players who were expressing frustration with the game, and they said, you know, these are just tourists, alluding to, okay, well, we have put tons of time into the game, we are devoted to the game, and those new people who have something to say, well, they don't really matter, because the people who really matter are the people who are on board with being fully bought in. And that's where you start to have this sort of it's kind of like a religious sort of a element going on, where people are, they're defining their identity on a basis of min-maxing in some hobby or some rather trivial pursuit, but they are using that as a way to compare themselves to other people and then say, if you aren't at the level I am, or you don't agree with what I have to say, or you aren't doing what I'm doing, then your experience is invalid because I am doing it right, and therefore everyone else is wrong. And that's a pretty toxic attitude to have, because for every one person who's telling you that you have to have the fastest refresh rate on your monitor in order to enjoy a good time in gaming, or telling you that you have to have the highest end video card to be a gamer, or telling you that you have to you know, do some sort of hardcore activities in a game and participate in the end game in order to have a good time. All of those people are, you know, for every one of those, there's quite a few casual people who will just be hanging out and enjoying their life. And, you know, maybe they don't have the fastest computer, they don't have the best monitor, they don't have the best setup, they don't have everything perfect, they haven't, you know, reached the end game, all of that kind of stuff. You know, they don't really have anything to brag about, but they are nonetheless having a good time. And that's really the crux of it. It's much more important to truly enjoy your life than it is to be able to show on paper that you have all of the makings of the best life. And there's a lot of people who have the best of everything on paper, but they're miserable people because the purpose of their life, from their perspective, is to have the best and to be the best, not to have the best experience. So, like, to me, I would rather take a half day and enjoy looking at the trees on a beautiful fall afternoon and drink my coffee and enjoy the day without any worries, without any concerns. I would rather do that than to be able to brag about how I have a really nice house and a lot of really great accomplishments, but instead of enjoying that day, I'm going to spend that day trying to grind, trying to do things that need to be done. You know, I was talking to a manager, one of the managers that works for us, managing Walmart stores, and he was talking about how it'd be hard for him to quit his job and go do something else, because when you get used to a fast-paced, high-intensity kind of a career, it's hard to feel that something less is purposeful. You get used to the challenge, you get used to the hardship, all of the above, and then, you know, it just feels like, you know, having a quiet life, having a quiet, simple job that isn't really demanding, it would just be, it would feel empty, because, you know, you kind of get addicted to the challenge and all of the things that are on keeping you on the treadmill, always chasing that next big thing, right? And it's very true. We see this in gaming as well. Like, there's a lot of people who feel like if you're not chasing some sort of an end game goal, there's not much of a point in really playing the game. And those also tend to be a lot of the people who are the most frustrated about things too in games. Very frustrated people who have committed a lot of their time and a lot of their life to trying to min-max in a game just so that they can be frustrated about the state of the game, raging because they're not really where they want to be. And, you know, then somebody like me logs in and, you know, all I do is just kind of screw around, hang out, have no objectives, and have a great time. So who's really winning, right? Is it the player who's got all of the best gear, or is it me? Hanging around in a game that I never played before, trying to figure out how to sail across the ocean in a raft, not knowing 90% of the game's mechanics, and just looking around in the grass and looking for NPCs I haven't met before, and you know, having pretty much no objective other than to hang out. But I'm not going to be out there saying negative things about the game, right? So life is something you can enjoy, but you have to get to the point where you're not going to constantly be coming up with reasons why it's not good enough. And, you know, somebody said something in a recent video of mine. One of you said, BDO's endgame is collecting real life friends. And, you know, I think that was a really, really eloquent thing to say, because it's so true. In MMOs, there's all of these mechanics, right? There's stuff that we can do. There's life skills you can grind. There's quests you can do. There's all of this stuff, which is an excuse to log into the game and to be present in the game world and to do stuff. But does any of that really matter? And I would make the motion that it kind of doesn't. It matters in the sense that what you're doing should feel fun, right? Like if I log into Black Desert Online and I enjoy the feeling of killing mobs because I like the combat system in the game, and then I log into a game like Elder Scrolls Online and I really don't like the combat at all, well, you know, I don't know. Maybe I should play the game that I actually feel like I'm enjoying my experience in. So gameplay does matter. But by the same measure, what really creates the sense of something being meaningful, it's being able to look over the years and see a community of people who've shared experiences, who've come together, and being able to say that maybe you got to know somebody, or if maybe you didn't get to know anybody directly, but you were on message boards and you're discussing it and you're talking to people and you're kind of networking a little bit, and you're creating an environment where you don't feel completely alone in the world. And maybe you do get some casual contacts out of it, or maybe you even get some permanent friends out of it. But that's so true in real life too. Like what really matters is getting people together and having a shared experience where we feel like all of the different experiences we have enrich each other. Give us something to think about, give us something to talk about, give us something that makes us feel connected. And when we get too granular about trying to min-max on things, when we get too obsessed with saying it's my way or no way, when we start to say I have to be right about everything and anyone who has a different play style than me is somehow wrong or shouldn't be part of the community, when we have those attitudes, we deprive ourselves of that true end game, which really should be celebrating everyone's experience and the fact that everyone's experience is ultimately completely different. On the Black Desert Online Facebook group recently, somebody was talking about recent balance updates in the game, and somebody said there's not anything in the new update for PvE players. And then somebody else said, well, we need PvP players to enjoy the game because PvP players need to be there so that they will buy our goods if we are life skillers. And, you know, that's certainly true in sandbox MMOs in general. I'm assuming that that's true in Black Desert Online as well. But it's a good example, though, of how life really is an ecosystem. Like, I could go throw stones at somebody who is more aggressive, somebody who's chasing some sort of progression all the time, because I'm more of a kind of a try to be at peace with everything, be zen, and not necessarily chase things. But at the end of the day, you need all kinds of people. Like for every person who's trying to be a peace-loving sense of calm in the storm, you have to have the other people who kind of are the storm. Because if everybody was the same, we wouldn't have a healthy environment that encourages thought and innovation and evolution of our society. And so it's not to say that there's any one idea that should prevail over all others. And understanding that is the key to a healthy community in a game or in life. And at the end of our lives, and we all have an end, what really matters is the connections that we make. And maybe that's a hard lesson to learn, because we always want to say, well, what's the next adventure? But the truth is, there will come a time in our lives when we are not going to have any more adventures. And It's going to be the end. And then we're going to say, well, what made our lives valuable? And it's going to be what we shared with other people. So don't make everything about yourself. Don't create a silo, which is just you and a few very niche people who share the same obsessions, and then act like everyone else is lesser. It's important to be inclusive of all different kinds of people and folks who are in all different positions within their life's journey. Because if you alienate people by saying, I just want to associate with the best of the best in whatever field I'm in, then you wind up being the best by yourself. And it's just like the evil queen saying, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And the mirror says, you are the fairest one of them all. But then she goes out and realizes there's no one in her kingdom at all. It's just her, ugly and old, but still the fairest one of them all in a kingdom of one. So make a point to be inclusive of things. Make a point to let go of some of this stuff. Make a point to understand that enjoying your journey in life isn't and shouldn't be so much about being at the apex, being the best. It's more about celebrating everyone's place, no matter where they are in their journey. You know, I'm on a Facebook group for workstations where people will share pictures of their computers, their desks, their workspaces, all of that kind of thing. And a lot of people will post pictures of their gaming PCs and their RGB lighting and all of the really like fancy setups, and those are kind of a dime a dozen. But then once in a while, somebody from clearly another country who doesn't have very much money, in a place where computer components and things are probably more expensive, where it's not super easy to just order it on Amazon, you know, or go down to Walmart and have it tomorrow. And then they'll post a picture of something that's really janky, something that's really old, pieced together, and they'll say, you know, I'm getting started. And those are the ones you remember. Like, those are the ones you think, wow, that's really cool, you know? Because here's a guy that just has like a phone and a crappy laptop propped up on an old beat to hell desk, and he shared this because, you know what, that's what he's got, and he's enjoying that experience. Maybe one day he'll have more, but for now he considers himself blessed to have what he has. And if we could all have that attitude and celebrate that kind of a mindset, I think we'd be better off. In any case, as always, good luck on your adventure. Till next time, thanks for watching.